name is Dave Rose. Really happy that we could be joined by Dylan Smith from the Prodsmart team. This is our initial webcast for a newer product from Autodesk named Prodsmart. It's a manufacturing execution system. It's more designed to help fill in some of those small steps that you do, that you may handle via email, Excel, Word docs, Post-its, what have you. Coming from an engineering background, it probably excites me a little more than it should to work with something like this. I've worked with a lot of different homegrown processes and saw how tenuous some of the steps could be. Lost forms, missed emails, spam filters that may catch Excel documents with macros embedded. The risk of transmitting data like that can be costly. Every change of format or every copy paste of data you have, or something that even needs to be manually re-entered, tends to bring with it the risk of human error, system error. And truly paperless systems are always a hope and dream, but we always know there's going to be some things that need to be committed to paper. The big question is how to minimize the importance of the paper that's generated. Can it be easily recreated? Maybe even recreated at the steps that it's in. Say if a traveler is misplaced on the floor or gets oil spilled on it or gets torn, can that traveler be recreated? Maybe even with these are the steps that have already been completed, this is the next step it needs to go to. Along with the product itself, you've got support from the team here at Hagerman, and as an added benefit, we've got support from the Prodsmart team at Autodesk, which are a very involved group. They definitely want to see customers have the best success with this software that they can be. Now, to not take up too much of your time, I'd like to introduce Dylan and have him walk through some of this stuff. As always, with any of the Autodesk presentations, don't make any buying decisions based on what you see today. You only want to base your decisions based on what's actually in the product on this day. So, as you can see, the safe harbor statement displayed up on the screen.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave.
No problem.
So as Dave said, don't make any purchasing decisions based upon anything that isn't already in the product today. Only buy things that are in the product today. Moving forward a little bit though, the agenda today looks a little bit like this. We're going to start off by giving you a quick introduction into who I am and who Dave is. We're then going to go over some typical industry challenges in depth. Let's get a bit of a feel for the problems that people are facing today. And of course, we're going to move into the solutions to those problems, or at least the Autodesk solutions to these problems, before getting into a bit more of a hands-on demo, showing you the ins and outs of the product itself. And then finally, of course, leaving a large chunk of time at the end to address any questions. I'm going to quickly hand it back to Dave, so Dave can introduce himself, because we might hear from Dave a little bit again later on.
All right. Myself, I'm coming from, as I had mentioned, an engineering background, mechanical design, manufacturing, engineering for several companies, all the way down from small to large, just about everything in between. Out of that 30 plus years, more than 20 of it has been with 3D CAD packages, be it Inventor, SolidWorks, Solid Edge. The last 10 plus has been in CAD admin and PDM management. So a lot of interaction with Vault and Vault-like applications. I also spent some time doing Inventor customization and automation. Background is definitely strong with the CAD management, system admin, and then training, troubleshooting, and implementing systems. So,
perfect. Thank you, Dave. So as a quick introduction into who I am, I'm Dylan Smith, and I've been involved in manufacturing in some way, shape, or form now for over 10 years. I started my career as an apprentice, and an apprentice in the UK essentially gets their education alongside doing the job. So my job was learning how to use equipment like manual lathes and mills whilst trying to understand the intricacies of manufacturing. After doing that for 4 years, I became a manufacturing specialist, then a senior manufacturing specialist before becoming a team leader all within 3 years. I then worked closely with the product teams within the customer engagement organization within Autodesk before moving to the United States recently to occupy the role that I'm in, which is technical sales specialist. I get to speak to customers every day, which allows me to keep up with the latest trends and understand the way the industry is going, which I think somewhat gives me a bit of a unique perspective into different subsets of the industry. And somewhere along the way, I also got my engineering degree. So with all of that tied up and out the way, let's get into it. So what I always like to do first is to take some time to familiarize ourselves with typical production workflows, starting from bidding on the job all the way through to completing the job and shipping it to our customers. There may be slight nuances, but manufacturers everywhere have to go through at least some of these steps, and most of them have to go through all of them. So let's take a look at what those steps are. Firstly, we start off with estimating. So this is starting off with a quote which takes into consideration things like material cost, labor cost, machine cost, and of course, some element of fixed costs as well. These are all variables that every quote needs to consider, as well as how long it will take to do the job and how many there are to be made. Now, once the estimating's done, once the bid's accepted, we move into the planning phase. We look at where it fits into the schedule, what machine it goes on, who does it, and all the required admin like the sales order. After that, we move into the procurement phase. So if we're making a SKU, so what I mean by SKU is if we make products for the business and we stock items on the shelves and then sell them on our website, that's going to be a SKU. If we're a job shop, we're going to more take individual jobs on from customers. But going back to the point, if we sell SKUs, then we probably have the inventory on the shelves. If we're a job shop, we probably have to order the material brand new. Now, of course, we move into the inevitable step, which is actually making the components. We need a production order, we need a plan, instructions, and we need a status update as we go through the job. And then once it's made, of course, we have to inspect it. Nobody worth the salt is sending out components that aren't inspected. So this is a pretty critical part of the situation. And then, of course, finally, when all of that's been ticked off, we do get to the logistical phase of eventually shipping the part. Now, this does sound all very normal, but the reason we've walked through this is to give you a good understanding of what shop owners, production managers, foremen need to stay on top of in the manufacturing process. Generally, if you visit a shop, all of this information will be kept in different places. It's going to be on Excels, as Dave said, Word documents, Post-it notes, paper, and other forms of disconnected documentation. The real question is, how can this process be linked together and consolidated? So this is how most companies are set up. They operate in functional silos. Department heads set up processes using whatever tools are available, typically Excel and email. Little attention is paid to how information flows across the business. While individuals may be organized, processes that involve people and information from multiple functions are chaotic and inconsistent. But I guess the question is, how chaotic does it get? This image can be representative of manufacturers and how the information is communicated between the separate groups within these companies. It's all highly disconnected, meaning tracking down information is difficult. This leads to critical information slipping through the cracks, which can really affect a company's way of operating and, more importantly, their reputation. I speak to companies frequently who lose information on jobs, lose the physical job altogether, lose crucial documentation, which either affects the bottom line or affects the relationship with the customer, which is not a unique problem that I've come across in the industry. So referring back to the previous slide, trying to coordinate all departments on a new job without missing out crucial information, which could lead to a loss, can be very difficult. What are some of the main problems that arise from this disconnection? The first one is missed deadlines. How do we know when a job is due if we have many going concurrently? Lost or misplaced documentation, lack of communication, or overestimating the capacity within the schedule are a couple of factors which can contribute towards this issue. Parts made from incorrect files. Where is all of this data centralized? Maybe we have a filing system set up on our PC, but how do we know which one's the latest one? Low profit margins. Do we have historical data to show what we're good at and where we make money? I suspect not. So how do we know what jobs, what customers, what industries, what geometries make us the most money? The answer is we don't. Excessive scrap and waste. Do we know who scraps the most? Do we know, again, what geometries we're not good at, what industries we have more scrap in, what customers we tend to scrap more for? If we do, then we can fix it at the root cause. If not, then we, of course, can't fix the problems. Traceability issues. If a customer came to us and requested all the information on a job that we done 5 years ago, how easily would it be to gather that information today? I suspect it would be quite difficult. And then, of course, finally, damaged relationships. Poor quality or late delivery will force a customer to reevaluate their relationship with us. If any other company can deliver in-spec parts on time consistently, better than we do, it's not going to be a tough decision for our customer to move away from us. So all manufacturers have distinct processes that are tracked with different methods: paper, spreadsheets, whiteboards, post-it notes. The problem with this is that the data associated with these processes moves very slowly, so that we can only ever look backwards at what our business did yesterday, last week, last month, last year, instead of being able to get this data when we really need it, which is, of course, in real time. So how are companies keeping track of all this information today? Well, businesses use a combination of easily accessible tools like Excel and Word, but the most common one for tracking that data on the shop floor is the one that's been around for many hundreds of years, which is paper. This piece of paper will follow a job through its life cycle. The workers working on each stage will document different bits of information, such as quantity produced, timing, signatures for accountability, raw material specs, and more. Once the paper eventually gets to the end of its life cycle, it looks a little bit like this. Now, if it gets to the end of its life cycle and all the sections are filled in, then we are very lucky. Nonetheless, even with all the sections filled out, this method, even though it's better than doing absolutely nothing, still comes with huge downside. So let's run through some of those major issues that come from tracking on paper. So number one, hard to read or understand. If we cannot read the information that's put onto the paper, then this was all redundant. The benefit of this paper is to put the information at some point into some sort of database to track the workers' hours, to bill, to make the jobs traceable, to have historical data and all the rest of it. Now, let's assume the information tracked on the paper is perfectly done. The handwriting is impeccable. The timings are accurate to the millisecond. This is still not that useful. If we have a bottleneck or a job is delayed, the only way for us to find out about that is either by word of mouth or when the job isn't ready to ship when we expected. Nothing about this data helps us solve problems in real time. And finally, this information, to be useful, needs to be logged in some kind of database. This means that someone must take time out of their day to read this and input it into a system for every person and every single job. The question you have to ask yourself if your business does this is, what else could that person be doing? If we don't log it in a system, then we have no long-term data or analytics to use to make business decisions moving forward. To give anyone who isn't familiar with this piece of paper some context, here is its role in the entire production process. It tracks data through manufacturing for that data to then be plugged into some system, more than likely, again, an Excel spreadsheet with other historical data. The purpose is so we can then look back retrospectively at the success of former jobs. Of course, if the information put in is incorrect, everything is redundant. But again, reframing the problem, assuming this information is tracked perfectly through its life cycle, this information is only useful when the process is finished. It's not going to do anything for us when we're in real time. So if we hit a bottleneck or problems with production, the only way for this information to reach problem solvers is by them hearing via word of mouth or walking the shop floor. So paper travelers aren't the solution to long-term business prosperity by the sounds of things. Maybe you've heard the term ERP thrown about before. An ERP is an enterprise resource planning tool. Its job is to offer complete digital oversight into every facet of the business. We can see some of the modules clearly laid out. If you think about your company, if you think about other small to medium-sized businesses, do you think that all of this is 100% relevant, or do you think there's going to be an element of it that's overkill? Well, if you want all of it, we can most certainly have all of it, and an ERP can definitely be a silver bullet to all of our problems. But we are, however, going to pay the price for that silver bullet. A few of the common issues around ERPs is firstly that it can take time to get up and running. Implementation can take up to 18 months, and up to 18 months is not the limit on ERPs. It's just generally of how far it can go, but it can go much further as well. On top of that, these systems have a 50% first time round failure rate on top of a 67% overall failure rate of implementation. On top of that, the cost for the initial software is enormously expensive, and the services for implementation are generally 5 times more expensive than the initial software. And assuming we navigate the slow implementation and the high cost successfully, we then face our final challenge of learning and adopting the new custom-made software, which is no walk in the park. So with all of that information, how likely do you think success is for a small business? Again, ERPs are great. I'm definitely not throwing shade at ERPs. They most definitely have their place in the market. But the part of an ERP that's most impactful for small to medium-sized manufacturers is going to be the manufacturing execution element. Manufacturing execution systems are standalone systems that solely focus on this problem. So when we think about small to medium-sized manufacturing businesses that want enterprise-level insights without paying enterprise-level prices, this is where the MES fits. The goal of these systems is to digitize the process and information most companies are today tracking on paper, Excel spreadsheets, and email. This is leading to real-time visibility, allowing problems to be solved in real time due to decisions being strongly backed by objective information. With all of that information in mind, let me introduce you to the Autodesk solution to the problems which we spoke about so far, which is Prodsmart. Now, apologies, this video doesn't have audio, but I think it's going to give you a really good idea about what Prodsmart is in general. Ooh, apologies. So just a quick oversight into Prodsmart being used in an actual working environment. And again, it's important to know we are going to get into the product. So apologies for no audio. Okay, I think we can move on. So as the title here says, the mantra of Prodsmart, to give you a little bit of insight before we get into it, is the single source of truth for the whole business with shop floor at its core. So it's been applicable to production, operations, purchasing, scheduling, and anyone doing the real work out on the shop floor. With that in mind, let's jump into Prodsmart and let's take a look around. So we are going to do, let's say, a high-level overview of the product. This is as we'd walk through it with a customer who was interested in Prodsmart. A walkthrough of what it does, understanding of some pretty critical features in Prodsmart and how it could be applicable to your business. Now, starting off, this is the main dashboard within Prodsmart. And what we want to think about here is this is almost like an executive view of everything that's happening within the business. Now, the first place we always like to start is the top left-hand side of the screen. What we can see here is the feed. Now, when you think of the feed, the way you want to think about this is that it's almost like social media, but for the shop floor. As things happen, as things change, these events flow through the feed in real time to the people who need to know about it the most, like production managers, like owners, like shop floor foremen. As an example, we can see that Jan Willem here has finished downtime on milling machine 1. He's also finished downtime on milling machine 2. And we can see all of these people here who have started jobs and operations, what time they've started them and what date. So immediately going back to the theme of information in real time, this is the first indicator of that. On the top right-hand side of the screen, we have 4 high-level metrics. Number 1 being productivity. When we think of productivity, the way that this is measured within Prodsmart is how long did we expect something to take versus how long did it actually take, right? So we have pretty ludicrous percentage figures here, and if you can get to these percentages, then you're going to be in a good place. But the reason why these are so high in Prodsmart is because I'm on a demo account. Productivity, again, if you think something's going to take you 10 minutes and it takes you a little bit longer, then percentage is going to be lower. If it takes you short, it's going to be a little bit higher. Availability is going to be, if I have 10 CNC machines on the shop floor and one of them's down because it's getting a, let's say, preventive maintenance check, then my availability is going to be 90%. Quality is in respect to defect rate. So if I make 100 parts and 7 of those parts are somewhat bad or have defects or need rework, my quality or defect percentage is going to be 93%. And the overall equipment effectiveness is going to be an average of those 3. Now, I want everyone to take just one quick second, think of how these metrics could be implemented into your business. Productivity, availability, quality. What could you do with these? What would they mean? How could we change yearly KPIs? How could we change tactics and strategy in the business? Moving on, bottom left, we have ongoing jobs. So what's currently on the shop floor? Bottom right, finished jobs. And then in the middle, we have a high-level overview of anything that's been finished today, anything that's been wasted. Looks like we've had a pretty bad day. Anyone who's working, anyone who isn't, and then machines that are working and machines that aren't. Importantly, though, when we refer to machines, we're essentially referring to anything that has finite capacity. This can be a screwdriver, right? 2 people can't use a screwdriver at once, so we need to ensure that it is tied up. Now, again, the theme of the day is real-time visibility and production tracking. Think of all of these features, think of them in the context of your business, think about real-time information such as ongoing jobs. Do we have that visual today? If so, how manual is it? What's the process to get that visual up and running? Finished jobs, total finished products. Again, that's the executive area of Prodsmart over and done with. And if there are any questions about this part, please do put them in the chat. So now we're going to move on and we're going to move into a different area of Prodsmart. And this area is called products. And the reason why we always start here when talking about this product is because it's a fundamental understanding to how the product as a whole works. Now, when we think of products, I want you to think about anything from consumables such as screws and dowels through to raw materials, through to finished goods, CNC machine goods, through to sub-assemblies and full assemblies. The way that you should think about products is that it's anything that you want to keep inventory of, right? What do you want? How many products, or what do you want to know how many of what we have? So as an example, if I go into a dowel here, which I've logged as a product, really the only information that I'm logging in here is what's the minimum inventory levels that I want. So I've worked at numerous different CNC shops in the past, and one thing that always goes wrong is that things like screws, washers, nuts, bolts, dowels, always get to a pretty critically low level before somebody realizes that there's not enough left. Now, things like minimum inventory are going to send emails to the right people, let's say procurement, to say, we've got to a dire level of inventory for the dowels. It takes 5 days for the dowels to come, and we usually use 50 a day. We should order 500 at a minimum because that's the only thing that makes sense. Okay. Now, if we look at a CNC machine good, we're going to see different information logged in here. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So as a CNC machine good, we're going to keep store of information such as operational flow. What operations have to happen in order for us to make this component? So here we have raw stock, we have op1, op2, clean and deburr, inspect, package. And if I'm interested in seeing how long something takes, then we can go in here and I've got all this information. This takes an hour for this op. Well, that's what we expect it to take at least. And we can apply things like sections where it's done, particular people, machines that it should go on, etc. Now, if we go back to products, on top of that, having the operational flow, we have materials and subproducts. This is basically saying, in order for me to make this product, which is a pedal, I have to consume pedal raw stock in the quantity of 1. So let's just think about that for a second. I have pedal raw stock as a product and as inventory, and the pedal as inventory as well. If I want to create 10 of these pedals, I'm going to have to consume 10 pieces of raw stock. Hopefully that makes sense. Then on top of that, we can have things like notes, files, which can be 2D drawings, work instructions, unit of measurements, and suppliers. Now, finally, to finish off in products, if we look at something which is more of a full assembly, because if your business is more full assemblies rather than individual components, you want to know how relevant this is to you. So we have the same thing. We have the operational production flow that needs to happen in order for us to make this particular assembly, but we also have the full bill of materials. So I don't know where you guys keep the bill of materials today. Maybe it's in Excel spreadsheets, maybe it's in disconnected documentation, but essentially here we can track the entire bill of materials, and the same rule applies as last time. If I want to create one of this product, which is a bedside drawer, I have to consume all of this. And if it's more than one, then the bill of materials simply gets times by however much we need to make. And again, I know there's a lot to take in there, but if there are questions, please do put them in the chat and we'll get to it right at the end. So now we're going to move forward. We're going to change gears slightly, and we're going to put ourselves in the lens of a production manager, shop floor foreman, owner, whatever hat you wear that oversees the production floor. Now think about the way that you track jobs today. How do you keep on top of everything, right? I assume you do this by walking through the shop floor. I assume maybe you go and speak to people, you email people on the shop floor. I don't know how you do it, but if you don't do it this way, then it's going to be suboptimal. Now within here, this is the job board. What we can see is we have all of the jobs that are on our shop floor at the moment. Some of the key bits of information on here are, what are we making firstly? So we're making the pedals. When did we start this? When do we expect this to finish? Again, think of that information and how that can be useful to you. If you have a job here and you see a progression chart as well as a due date that it's expected to be finished on and it's on schedule, what does that mean for your communication with your customer? How differently is that going to change the way that you communicate with clients and with customers? On top of that, we can see how long we expect it to take, how long we've actually worked. And then if we open this up, we can see the more granular details about how long each operation took, how long it was supposed to take, how long it deviated from what we expected. We can get as granular and as specific as we want in Prodsmart. Of course, you don't have to, but if you want to, then you most certainly can. Again, we are now in the shoes of someone from the shop floor. So what we're going to do is, let's assume firstly we're a job shop. I can come in and I can say, new jobs just came in, customers phone me, test job 14, let's say it's called this. We create the product, put the same name in here, test job 14. We give the job a start date. We give the job an end date. It's going to take us about 2 days. I want to make 5 of them, or the customer wants 5 of them. I'm going to associate a process template because I've just looked at the job and I'm seeing that it needs two machine operations. So I'll select this job template. We can come in here. I can start assigning people to each operation. Let's say one person's a laborer, so they collect and prepare the material. We have CNC machinists who do the actual machining, etc., etc. So if that's what we were going to do, if we're a job shop, we can save that, execute the job, now it's ready to go. However, if we're a company that makes a line of products and we have everything tracked within Prodsmart, it's going to be similar but a little bit different. So I can come in here, and the difference is going to be that I can simply search for the product that I need to make. Same thing again, start date, end date, number in which I want to make them, and we can get super specific about who's doing what. Now, on top of that, on top of applying the workers, we also have machines that we can apply. And what you'll notice is that we can only select the machines that are applicable to the specific operation. So of course, when I'm doing the cutting of the raw stock, I don't want to use a milling machine or a lathe for this. So I only have the option for the bandsaw. And the same applies for Op1 and Op2. When I want to do the machining, the only operations that I have available to me are the milling machines. So same thing applies again, save that. But because we're consuming raw material this time, it's telling us, oh, just to let you know, Dylan, to make 8 of these, you're going to need 8 of the raw stocks, and we have 1,131 left. Okay, perfect. That's how we control Prodsmart from the back office. That's how we're going to be executing jobs and sending them out. Now, let's change gears slightly and let's put ourselves now in the shoes of the shop floor workers. So what we're looking at now is the worker tablet within Prodsmart. And the worker tablet can be accessible via iPhones, Android phones, Apple tablets, Android tablets, web browsers, however you would want to accept, however you would want the staff on the shop floor using this, it's pretty much accessible via any means. Now, if we select insert production, let's put ourselves again in the shoes of the people on the shop floor. Assume that we've just came in, it's a Monday morning, and this is the way we see what jobs we've got to do. We put our unique ID in, press OK, and now we can see all the jobs that we've got. Caveat, this is a demo account, so there's a lot going on in here. I assume that the workers on your shop floors only have 2, 3, 4 jobs going at any one time. And if a question that you've already asking yourself is, can you do multiple jobs concurrently? The answer is yes. So the job that we've just created was job 95. So I select the job, I select the product, and I select the operation. Tell it the machine. Great. So now we insert production again. Whenever we finish the actual job, we can come in, insert production. How many did we make? We made 8. Perfect. Now, there are a couple of things that we can do to make this more, let's say, quality control checked. So in this instance, I'm saying what I need from my workers is a photograph. So take a photo. I need a signature because I want to make sure the person who did the job is accountable for the work. And there's a specific value that I want the operator to measure because it's a critical dimension. On top of that, we're going to ask the user, did anything go wrong? Did you scrap any jobs? And if you did, what was the reason for scrapping the jobs? Well, yeah, we actually did scrap one. And the reason why we scrapped one was because the intern unfortunately set the wrong datum and we only scrapped one. Submit. And now that next operation is going to be passed on to the next person doing the job. So everything, again, is purely digital. So if we go back to the worker menu, if we go back to the home menu, should I say, we're going to see again all of this stuff propagating through to the feed here. So we can see all of this information coming through to us in real time. So we're going to finish off looking at quality control, because this is usually an element of Prodsmart, which is very interesting. Firstly, touch on scheduling before we end on quality. But again, ask yourself the question, how are we scheduling today? How are we doing this? And what sort of insights do we have into it? Now, the scheduler within Prodsmart is directly linked to the jobs that we were speaking about earlier. So as we create a job, as we give it a timeline, it's going to fill up the schedule. Now, what we can see is that we have these red indicators above each day within the schedule. And what this is telling me is that I'm actually over exceeding the capacity that we have available to us. So on all of these days, I am so far over capacity. What I need to do is start moving jobs out. So what I want everyone to do is to keep their eyes on the percentages here. So as I move, we can see that the capacity dynamically updates. The capacity is directly driven from the amount of hours that we have available to us in the day, so we never exceed them. So again, we want to move these and find a better flow and a better balance for the kind of work we're doing. We can directly see all of these percentages lined up. So it's almost like balancing the line in the sense that we've just got more dynamic control of the schedule and more visuals into where our limit is. On top of that, the schedule can be filtered by job, by machine tool, can be scheduled by worker, or by operation. So there's many different ways that we can chop it up and schedule it. It really depends on how you'd want to do it. So if you remember a second ago, when we was finishing the job itself, we had an option to say, if something went wrong, why did it go wrong? What happened? Tell us about it. Now, the benefit to doing this is that we end up with this data here. Now, what we're looking at here is that I've got a super granular breakdown of what the defect rate is in my shop. And here's a question to ask yourself. Do you have this information on your shop today? If the answer is no, what would this mean to you? How would this help you make better decisions to improve your business? So getting back to it, we can see a 7.4% defect rate, meaning that every 1,000 parts that we make, 74 of them need rework or a complete scrap. Now, that figure on its own is somewhat unhelpful because 7%, I don't know if that's high, I don't know if that's low, I also don't know why it's happening. But if we come down here, what we can see is that we have the reasonings for why things have went wrong. And we can see that the number one reason why things have defects in our shop is machine inaccuracy. 40% of everything that goes wrong is down to machine inaccuracy, which is a staggering figure. The next one is broken cutters, and the third is mismeasured tool. Now, firstly, again, what am I thinking to myself? I'm thinking, well, machine inaccuracies, maybe I'll get the original equipment manufacturer in to calibrate and service the machines, because it's not right that 40% of everything going wrong is caused by a faulty machine. Secondly, broken cutters, this can be a couple of different things, right? This could be unskilled workers trying to push unsuited cutters with incorrect feeds and speeds and incorrect cutting parameters through harder material, right? Could be not running coolant and aluminium. It could be anything. So where we can start to break it down and where it gets really interesting is that I can now say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at this on an individual worker basis. Oh, so what we can see is that worker number 1 has a 14% defect rate, which means that his is double the shop average. So what's that telling me? This is telling me that worker number 1 isn't one of my better employees, and I should really start focusing some of my time to upskill worker number 1. What about worker number 2? Worker number 2 is slightly worse than average, but he's not bad. Let's look at what worker number 2 is doing on milling machine 1. So worker number 2 has a 0% defect rate on milling machine 1 and 2 and 3. Worker number 2 is very thorough on those machines, but if we look at worker number 1 on those machines, we can see milling machine 1 as a whole has a 20% defect rate. So milling machine 1 having a 20% defect rate, what does this tell me? Well, maybe this is the machine that needs calibrating. Well, if we look at milling machine number 2, that's slightly higher than average. And if we go to 3, yeah, nothing wrong with it there, really. Again, Prodsmart isn't going to tell you what actions to take. It's simply going to present you with the objective information for you to make the best decision. What would be the best decision in this case? It would clearly be to get a service and a calibration on milling machine 1 and 2, but it's clear that we don't need a service and calibration on all the machines because they don't all have atrocious defect rates. Now with that, I'm going to jump back into my PowerPoint. I'm going to summarize what we've just seen. So me and Dave gave you an overview into who we was, and you've heard us speak for the last 45 minutes or so. We then covered some common industry challenges, more specifically referencing really how disconnected information and antiquated forms of communication within the manufacturing process can cause huge issues. Then moving into the solution, or more specifically the Autodesk solution to these problems, before explicitly showing you around the product that we have recently acquired to solve these problems, which is Prodsmart. Now with that, I'm going to bring Dave back in for the Q&A. And at this point, we can start to answer all of the questions that are in the chat.
So we had a couple come in. Anybody else that has questions, please feel free to shoot them in at this time and we'll address them as we can. I wanted to thank you, Dylan. That was extremely informative. First question we've got is what Prodsmart is best suited for. And the question is it suited towards a high mix, low volume environment or high volume, low mix? Now, with the features it has, it's actually suited to both. It enables volume shops to get up and running pretty quickly. And the style of manufacturing it doesn't work for is like a continuous manufacturing where you've got one product running day after day after day all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's a good point, Dave. The continuous is an area where we don't do so well, but the differences between high volume, low mix and high mix, low volume. I think I should have cut a bit of that within the demonstration when we can quickly get up and running with a new job, like a job shop job, or if we have a SKU or a product that's been previously programmed within Prodsmart, it's just as quick for us to pull that up as well.
Okay. The next question we have is about the mobile devices. What operating systems do the tablets or smartphones need to be for the worker menu? This app can actually be accessed by Android or Apple. I've tested it myself with Androids, and as Dylan showed today, you can access it via the web as well. There are customers who might have one tablet in the middle of the shop and have a sort of common population. You might have other customers who may issue a device per workstation or per worker, and that way everybody is clocking into their device as well as their workday, and it follows and kind of keeps track of what they're accomplishing during the day, so their entire workflow. So you're getting everything recorded. The next question we have, are there any documented customers who have succeeded using Prodsmart? I think I understand. There's one customer that showing Prodsmart used in industry. Hold on one second. I'm going to grab this and put it in the chat. It is an actual link to the success story. And everybody should be seeing this come through on their chat windows now. So you feel free to review that at your convenience. We did have one other question come through, and for Vault customers, does Prodsmart play nice? With this not being an engineering data system, more of a manufacturing system, you're going to be looking for cooperative play. Working through like Vault and Inventor, there are ways of exporting the BOM where you can get that data into Prodsmart for your manufacturing process to use. I mean, it's a little bit of data transmission, but it's quite a bit better than manually running a BOM through someone doing data entry. So you're going to get better accuracy and more consistency on that. Any comments, Dylan, as far as what you might have seen from any other Vault customers?
Yeah, one blanket statement I'll say is that Prodsmart has an open API, although it doesn't necessarily have a built-in handshake with Vault today. Opportunities for connection with other Autodesk products and other non-Autodesk products around this, and I can only see us Autodesk building out more integrations with pre-existing products. We have one with Fusion 360 today. Again, safe harbor statement, there's no purchasing decision should be made on anything that isn't in the product today, but I do see us building out that more platform-like vision where more of our tools are communicating with each other.